This is Cast of Wonders, the fiction podcast for young adults featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome. Episode 134 for August 24th, 2014. This week we bring you part 1 of Flowers for the Dead by Jamie Mason. Jamie is a Canadian science fiction and fantasy writer whose short fiction has appeared in Abyss and Apex, On Spec, the Canadian Science Fiction Review, and has been anthologized in Dead North and Fractured, Tales of the Canadian Post-Apocalypse by Exile Editions this month in August 2014. His novel Echo was published in June 2011, and his post-apocalyptic novel The Book of Ashes is forthcoming from Permuted Press. You can learn more on his blog, which we'll link for you in the show notes. The story is narrated for you by a new voice to Cast of Wonders, Paul Cram. Paul is an actor by trade. He's been in dozens of different articles, reviews, and interviews in places like Chicago's Screen Magazine, Fangoria.com, and the Horror Movie Podcast. When not acting, Paul can either be glimpsed with his head in a book between the rows at the library, or running to look for loose railway spikes at an old train station. We'll put links to his Twitter account, that's Paul Cram Actor, and website in the show notes for you. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Flowers for the Dead by Jamie Mason, in memory of Kimberly Proctor and Taisha Jones. Read for you by Paul Cram. Out the windows on the left, you'll see the recent construction across the tops of the factory and high-rise buildings where the more powerful infernals have established themselves as a kind of informal aristocracy. Originally called Morningside, this neighborhood was abandoned when the factory closed. But when our city passed laws regulating the infernals, many moved here because of their restrictions onto employment, welfare, housing, and health care. The majority live at street level, in poverty. High crime rates, addiction, and violence remain ongoing concerns among this population of supernatural beings. Kyle transforms his 37th cigarette butt into a geranium as Sick Willie talks to the police. Oh, yeah, she slummed around with us. A lot of rich kids do. Come and walk on the wild side, spend a night in the shelter before running home to Mom and Dad. Figured she was no different. Oh, she's different, all right. Harriman, the cop, flicks an irritated glance at Kyle as the geranium drops to the sidewalk. Different enough to wind up dead. She was a nice kid. The murdered ones usually are. When was the last time you saw her? Kyle remembers. It was night before last at the park where they went to score dope from a grower with the power over earth elementals. They watched him stick a few seeds in the ground, incant, and 5 minutes later, hand over a bag of fresh, rich buds. Kyle, Sick Willie, Trad, Griffin, and Kimberly. The new girl. The rich girl. The dead one. How was she murdered? Magically, or... Think I'd be slumming around here if she wasn't? Harriman casts a disgusted glance up the sidewalk. A crowd of blank-eyed pedestrians shuffle through the streetscape of bars, laundromats, the word gym poking out over the sidewalk in filthy red letters. Typical, sneers Sick Willie. Only time we ever see you guys around here is when something goes wrong. And even then, it's only just to drop in and remind us of our place. Careful, Willie. The cop's hand drops to his utility belt where his platinum cuffs glimmer in their leather case. Wouldn't want to go to Foulgate, would you? Ever hear what they do to little fluxers like you there? Oh, you guys are real popular with the prison bulls. You get to do the same job there that you do out here on the street. Except you don't get paid. At least I'm free. Sick Willie's smile is a pantomime insult. I don't take orders from anybody. You call what you do being free. Harriman deflects the slight with a perfunctory laugh. Was Kim alone or did she bring a friend? Girls like to travel in pairs. Alone. She stay at the drapery? Yeah, we all sheltered up that night. It rained. The cop produces his notebook, writes. Was the cardinal there? Nah, one of the siblings was in charge. What did you have for dinner? Harriman produces a silver cigarette lighter, a custom item emblazoned with a stylized police badge, and begins tapping it against his notebook cover. Shepherd's pie. Kyle volunteers this not to help Harriman, but to bring the heat off of Sick Willie, because Willie gets enough heat just for turning tricks. You're testing us to see if we're telling the truth, yeah? Bet you already spoke to the cardinal. The cop frowns. Why you keep turning cigarette butts into geraniums, Kyle? 'Cause it's pretty. I could run you in. Gratuitous use of magic, that's still on the books, you know. There's a law against making things pretty? Kyle does not yet know what kind of magic will be his for life, but lately his gifts are manifesting as things of beauty. Using the power of his mind, Kyle twists fast food wrappers into impromptu telekinetic sculptures. When he has strong emotional experiences, he can cause traffic lights to dance in random patterns of red, yellow, and green, or cause clouds to assume the shapes of animals and splotches of color to appear on the brick walls of alleyways. He does this automatically now, subconsciously transforming the environment in which he was born and raised, the streets of Nightside. The law, Harriman is saying, isn't against beautification. It's to prevent infernals like yourself from using your abilities to unfair advantage. That's what got you guys into trouble and restricted to Nightside in the first place. That's the law, and it's my job to enforce it. That more important than finding Kim's killer? The words pop from Kyle's mouth before he has a chance to think about them. The cop's eyes narrow. Got any dope on you, kid? No, Kyle says truthfully, because tonight Sick Willie is holding. So Kyle turns out his pockets and places the contents on a nearby doorstep. These consist of a pencil stub, a folded scrap of paper, 2 condoms, a half-eaten chocolate bar, 2 guitar picks, a book of matches, a half-empty pack of Marlboros, and a cigarette butt, which he picks up and transforms into a geranium. Harriman makes a dismissive gesture, coupled with a muttered whisper, "Go ahead." Then Kyle gathers up and repockets his stuff. The geranium he lets fall to the sidewalk to join the pile of others beside the cop's shoes. So, the drapery. Harriman fiddles with the lighter. Any of you sleep with her? Get away! Sick Willie is, in addition to mostly gay, horrifically shy. Besides, they always make girls sleep on one side of the gym and guys on the other. But you said there was another girl there. Harriman flips notebook pages. Trad. Was that her name? Did she sleep with Kimberly? Sick Willie is disgusted. Trad? It's 14. The cop's eyebrows lift. Oh, so you're letting underage girls run around with you. Nice. She bum any cigarettes? This last is directed at Kyle. 'Cause if you give her any, you're breaking the law. No, I didn't give her cigarettes, Kyle smiles. But I turn my butts into geraniums and give them to her. Does that count? Harriman ignores this. Where's Trad? His tone is bored, peremptory. He expects them to know. He expects a prompt answer. No idea. Sick Willie's gaze slides towards the street, toward the thickening crowd of potential customers picking up in the evening's flow. What am I, her mother? You know her mother? The emphatic no hardens on a frown, a squint. The cop's attention travels from Sick Willie to Kyle and back again. When he receives no response, he taps his lighter on his notebook, waits for the nervousness of one or the other boy to drop, and when it does not, he flips his pad shut. We're not done. You ought to know that. I'll be back. Harriman pockets his pad, smiles humorlessly. We're gonna catch the psycho who did this. You never told us, says Kyle, where she was found? Harriman stares for a long moment. Kyle is not clairvoyant in the slightest, but he senses the cop is crossing him off his list of possible suspects. Because Kyle asked a question the killer would not think to ask. She was found in the underpass, cut up real bad and partially burned. Somebody poured gasoline on her afterwards and tried to set the body on fire. There was a long pause after this. Kyle experiences that feeling of world's ending you get after hearing thunder. But there is no thunder, just silence in the sky darkening above the rooftops, and that weird shimmer of incomprehension you get when you hear that someone you know has died. He swallows and says, "That's bleak sick." "She was 17. The cop turns to go. For the next quarter hour, there is a lull in pedestrian traffic. Willie and Kyle do not speak. The streetlights flicker to life, not until cars begin running with their lights on that the pedestrians return. Sick Willie makes ready to start fishing for Johns, and Kyle resumes scanning the sidewalk for cigarette butts.
A dozen egg rolls and an order of pineapple chicken, some beef chow mein too, 1 order, and 4 Cokes. My name? Sebastian. My callback number? It's...
Sick Willie squints through the gloom to read back the payphone's number to the cashier.
We'll pick it up in 15. Thanks.
He hangs up, waits. 1 minute later, the phone rings. Sick Willie answers.
Hello, this is Sebastian. Did I place an order with you? Yes, I did. See you soon.
He hangs up, steps out of the phone booth, and leads Kyle and Griffin into the alley behind the restaurant he just called. The old Chinese man who runs the place got so tired of people scavenging in his garbage that he paid a fool to put a hex on the dumpster, where he chucks unclaimed takeout orders. Fortunately, Trad is the best hex breaker in Nightside. But Trad is late, so they wait. Kyle leaning on the wall to light a smoke, Griffin elastic banding his long dark hair into a ponytail, and Sick Willie glancing between the restaurant's kitchen door and the nighttime fun parade passing the alley's mouth. Hey, Griff. Slightly stoned, Kyle is reminded by the sputter of his igniting match. Some sick scradger cut up Kim and doused her body with gasoline to burn it. What kind of bleak sicko would? Not an infernal. The realization dawns on Kyle the moment Griffin speaks it aloud. Why would an infernal use gas?
Casting a fire elemental? Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Sick Willie, still in girl form from his last trick, narrows and slides his mascaraed eyes from Griffin to Kyle.
For most infernals, anyway.
Yeah, Kyle. Griffin's grin, as he gets into the spirit, is pure mean. Figured out your kind of magic yet? Like Sick Willie, Griffin already knows his gift, and as if to rub it in, he sweeps the air with a clawed hand. The limbs are ripples in the sorcery, accelerating Griffin's blows with the strength of tiger's claws, rotating knives, and avalanche. Griffin is a fighter. Sick Willie is a hooker. Trad is a hexbreaker. And Kyle? I'm an artist, he says quietly. The steel door to the restaurant kitchen squeaks, and a harried man in an apron emerges in a spray of steam and loud Chinese voices. The door doesn't even reach the outer edge of its arc in the time it takes him to cross the alley and lift the dumpster lid. He barks a comment over his shoulder in Chinese, still absorbed in an argument with a coworker as he drops a takeout bag among the trash. Then he lets the lid fall, crossing the alley in 2 return steps to disappear back into the swirl of dish clatter and steam, the trio of nearby kids unnoticed as the door falls shut behind him. Did you know? Griffin speaks quietly. There's a Chinese restaurant in, like, every city in the world, even Nairobi.
Yeah, but how many have one of those on their dumpster?
Sick Willie jerks his chin at the small, alert, pterodactyl-like creature perched on the corner. The hex swivels its bony head toward Willie, eyes rolling like glistening yellow marbles in their slanted sockets. It hisses, shaking reddened wings.
Scratch you.
Sick Willie gives it the finger, and the hex abruptly vanishes, no longer visible. The curse nevertheless lingers, skulking the shadowed base of the dumpster like a croc in muddy shallows. Where the hell is Trad? Griffin flicks an irritated glance at the digital time display on the building across the street. 10:30 p.m. I'm hungry.
Griffin.
Slick Willie's form fluctuates between male and female as he spits, gestures to where the hex was last visible.
Think you could hit that scratcher?
Funny, Griffin snorts. Like I want my life to become an endless series of catastrophes.
Well, Chad ain't here and she's the hex breaker. What the hell? You expect me to offer it a date?
A date? The idea appeals to Kyle. A variation of it welling up from within the folds of his artist's soul. He holds an image in his mind, the hex, as it appears in physical avatar. The sharp, elongated skull, the reddened wings, the narrow slanting eyes. And he softens it, adds a touch of green, a few curvaceous details. The wings he makes taper delicately into dainty claws. Kyle draws the image toward himself, willing it into existence, and opens his eyes to see a smaller, more feminine version of the hex preening itself on the railing of the kitchen steps. Holy cow! There's another one! Before Griffin is even finished, a cloud of smoke begins boiling around the dumpster's base. A screech rips the air. The dumpster hex fades into visibility on its old perch, bony head swiveling back and forth, and wings twitching in obvious excitement as its glistening eyes lock onto the female version of itself. The hex unfurls its wings, ungrips and regrips the dumpster's edge with its gnarled claws, and emits a frantic shriek for attention.
Look,
Sick Willie giggles.
it's horny.
The female hex abruptly stops preening, swivels her eyes left and right, and then leaps into the air, leathery wings beating once, twice. Then she is hurtling full tilt down the alley. The dumpster hex screeches after it, as if begging her to stop, then glances around guiltily before taking off in pursuit. Sick Willie and Griffin watch it disappear into the shadows. Howling and squawking, they exchange a look and turn to Kyle. I just thought, what beautiful would look like to the hex. Kyle scuffs the pavement with his sneaker and gestures after the disappearing birds. And that's what came out. Wild. Griffin blinks around a curl of cigarette smoke.
Come on,
Sick Willie snarls.
let's.
Rather than finish, he marches to the dumpster, grasps the lid, and pushes it over his head until his elbow straightens. He examines the contents, and his face whitens. Any chow mein? Griffin elbows Willie aside, then freezes. Kyle joins them. Reaching up through the rounded trash bags are the charred arms of a human being. Unnoticed by the Chinese kitchen worker, the arm's blackened fingers remain clawed in their final desperate grasp at life. The facial skin is tight around the contours of the skull, eyes caverns glaring as if in memory of the flames that boiled the eyeballs from their sockets. That portion of the skin garment still recognizable is a flimsy parchment yellow, blackening as leakage from the bags smears the ashy portion of the rest. Griffin spins and vomits. No! Sick Willie's face twists toward nausea. Trad, whispers Kyle. Amongst the swarm of first responders and deafening murmur of bystanders, the thump of ambulance doors and clatter of stretchers, amidst the gruesome sight of Trad's cremains being fished from the dumpster by cops in hazmat suits, and the swirl of glaring red lights.
Man, don't you have anything better to do?
Sick Willie shakes his head, but hands over his laminated red card, which reads TF, Fluxer, anyway. Harriman examines it, notes the expiration date, and hands it back. I gotta renew mine. Griffin's tone is apologetic as he proffers his card, which reads TQ, Quanster. Better do it soon. Harriman pushes a hand, license clip between the first two fingers, back at Griff. His ever-present silver lighter comes out as his eyes pin Kyle. Yours? Don't have one. Kyle mumbles at the ground. Yet.
Poor boy, doesn't know his own magic.
Sick Willie's tone tips the edge of teasing into malicious, and Kyle flushes with abrupt rage. The nearest traffic lights flash red.
No license. Not even a learner's permit.
When you get one, Harriman ignores Willie, you keep it current. Don't want to end up like him. The cop gestures vaguely upwards and Kyle follows the movement. The high-rise ascends through the glow from street lamps, headlights and shop windows clustering its base, sides tapering toward the darkened sky. But somewhere between the scored facade and the stars, an uneven rampart of cement breaks the symmetry of the building. The concrete barrier poured to fill elevator shafts and stairwells and separate the top 2 floors from the lower 13 bursts out through windows to distend the structure's silhouette like a wide, ugly tank trap. Above, lights twinkle from the windows on the occupied floors, and a flag containing a single black top hat on a background of red shimmers, flutters in a spotlit halo. You mean Kierzig? Griffin blinks at the flag. What does the magician have to do with you hassling us?
Why do you think he's up there?
Sick Willie surprises everyone by answering for the cop.
Nightside's most powerful infernal doing stage magic because he forgot to renew his license. If he uses real magic, he'll do a stretch in Foulgate, right?
This last, directed at Harriman, is spoken in a disconcertingly adult tone. Harriman does not answer. Instead, he fingers his lighter, looks from the dumpster fouled in yellow police tape up to the lit windows of the magician's penthouse, then back to the dumpster again. Whoever dumped that corpse knows their way around a hex. Harriman points from Sick Willie to Griffin to the short Fruel in oversized shoes and a blue robe trudging past, dragging his magic bag behind him. Fluxers, Quantsters, Fruels. The pear-shaped man sets down his bag by the dumpster. Nightside has more kinds of magic than you can shake a stick at, and the magician knows them all. Knows them all. Kyle's breath leaves his body in a windy rush. For the first time since childhood, he feels the giddy exhilaration of living free of a burden that has long plagued him. He shivers and thinks the word freedom. But he knows he'll have to move cautiously because of the risk involved. Take his time. So he conceals his excitement, watching the Fruel as he speaks. Is the magician a suspect? I can't answer that. Harriman's lip press into a line, and he watches the Fruel unloop his bag, bend, and hand over hand begin pulling out an impossibly long butterfly net. A squawk splits the air. The Fruel freezes, slowly turns. Then, raising the net high over his head, he sprints in the direction of the hex's screech. Outsized shoes slapping the pavement, the moons and stars on his robe fluttering as he vanishes into the shadows. But I'd be lying if I said no. Harriman grins sourly, dismisses them with a wave. Orange firelight burnishes the roof of the underpass. Kyle studies the flames and listens to the tired hiss of cars on the rain-washed streets above. Streets teeming with humans and infernals, and all the wondrous magic of Nightside. Fluxers, Quantsters, Fruels. Glances over to where Griff and Sick Willie huddle below a tarp on a pile of used tires, secure in the knowledge of their own personal magic, their dreams untroubled by doubt. Kyle has been friends with them for a long time. Together they have experienced all the adventures to be had in the chasm between childhood and young adulthood, observed the rites of passage, grown and changed with them, but now... Yeah, Kyle, figured out your kind of magic yet?
Poor boy, doesn't know his own magic.
His friends have left him behind. Kyle grits his teeth at the hot bubble of frustration tightening in his chest. It's not fair, he thinks. Not fair. All around, it seems the world is moving on. the way his friends have, and yet he remains locked in a soundless stillness, the kind you sometimes experience on a country road at autumn, when you stand still just before dusk and feel the evening settling. The stillness is overwhelming, and Kyle feels on the brink of breaking when Harriman's words return to him, along with the memory of giddy exhilaration and burdens lost. Nightside has more kinds of magic than you can shake a stick at, and the magician knows them all. All. Soundlessly, Kyle rises and begins making his way back toward the city.
When Jamie first submitted Flowers for the Dead, the story was almost rejected. Not because of its length. We've run longer pieces before and will continue to do so. And not because of its subject matter. We've never shied away from the darker facets of difficult lives that younger people face. No, I almost rejected the story because of the swearing. In the original draft, Kyle and Willie had mouths like sailors. Not surprising, given their environment and the life they're forced to live on the streets. But the profanity didn't add anything to the story. Worse, in places, it was outright distracting. Rather than delete them, though, Jamie and I talked through the idea of adding to his world by creating infernal swear words, similar to the frack in Battlestar Galactica or Farscape's fro. Jamie really ran with the idea, and I received not only an updated manuscript of the story, but a delightful memo from Professor Eunicius B. Jameson, director of the Department of Infernal Studies, explaining the meanings and history behind the new vocabulary. I love how a stumbling block, like swear words, turned into a way to add deeper meaning to this Victoria by Night. Join us next week for the conclusion of the story. If you've enjoyed this piece, then please lend a hand in supporting podcast fiction. Leave us and this story a review on iTunes or our Facebook page, and share the episode with others. You can find us on Twitter as well. We're at Cast of Wonders. And please consider making a donation via the PayPal links on our site. 100% of our donations go to cover bandwidth costs and purchase stories. Every little bit helps, and you have our heartfelt thanks for helping us keep bringing you the best young adult audio fiction week after week. Cast of Wonders is a production of Wolfsbane Publishing and is brought to you by the creative team of Barry J. Northern, our publisher and artist, Alan Sale, our audio producer, and I remain as always your humble editor and host, Marguerite Kenner. Our episodes are released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but please don't change it or sell it. Our theme, Appeal to Heavens, is by Alexei Nov from MusicAlley.com. Thanks for listening.